Ben Lobby from Central Florida, EXP. Ben, before we get into things, for folks not familiar, how did you become the Ben Lobby that we all know and love? What's been your journey on real estate?
Oh, it's been quite a long one. I'm actually celebrated 10 years this past year, and I didn't think I'd make it that far, but it's been a fun journey. And I originally started at a boutique brokerage and then switched over to EXP, I think about 7 years ago, and started my team here.
Okay, I'm gonna need your face routine. 10 years in real estate, you barely look like that's legal. I don't know what age did they license you in Florida? So we were talking before, and look, you're amazing at AI, and would love to talk about that. But you're also amazing at Sphere. So give everybody a sense, and a four-time icon. What was your production like last year, and what percentage of that would you say comes from sphere of influence and your community events?
So I would say of our production last year, so with the team, we did about 175 transactions, and we kind
Wow.
of focused on 50% of the business coming from team generated leads and 50% coming from sphere of influence and helping team members grow their sphere of influence, because that's how I grew my business as an independent agent before I launched the team. And it's really like the long-term plan of, building those relationships with people either in your community or your local friends and family, and getting that power of the word of the mouth, right? Of getting referrals and recommendations, because once you help someone and they have a good experience, then they're basically, I just say, okay, this is a new lifetime customer, right? I
Yeah.
want this one transaction to be a customer for the rest of their life, so that I'm their person for all of their real estate transactions. I think when you look at it like that, you take a slightly different approach as to how you actually manage your database and market to your sphere and bring people together as a community, and share information with them.
Yeah. You mentioned database, and I know for a lot of agents, it takes them a long time to realize that until you create and work a database of your past clients in your sphere, you're going to be on the treadmill of whatever form of lead generation you have, Facebook, FISBOs, expires, whatever the case might be. For you, you're working a formal CRM, I'm guessing?
Mhm. Currently in Follow Up Boss. Yep.
Okay, in Follow Up Boss. And how long into your 10-year tenure was it before you started building your database? So your actual CRM, I mean.
25 years before I started real estate.
25 years before you started real estate? Is that what you said?
Yeah, is when I started building my database.
Tell me about that. What do you mean by that?
So I remember growing up as a kid and I couldn't remember everyone's phone number of my friends that I wanted to stay connected with and build relationships with. And so started writing a list down first, and then I would eventually got introduced to computers because they started to exist at that time, and was putting stuff into computers. And I remember in like fifth grade, I actually created a Microsoft Access database where I would like list out my friends and where they lived, their address and their birth date and their phone number. And was very OCD about, having to have complete information, like first name, last name. Like, so when I see someone who has like on their phone, when they have me listed in their phone and it's like, Ben from the gym, I'm like, can I complete that contact for you? Because I didn't get it. That just became a thing. So for me, it's always been, building uh, a Rolodex of people and their information over a long period of time, and it's just like stuck with me. So I highly recommend you have to collect as many little bits of information as possible. And there's just a lot of noise in the world right now, and there's a lot of distractions. And the more that you can put into an organized system, the more personal you can be with your interactions with these people. So
Yeah. And more likely you are even to interact with these people. And so it
exactly.
sounds like you were destined to be a realtor from the very get-go.
Yeah. I also I don't like I think when I first started getting into the business side of things, I also and had a cell phone. I became like, I really was frustrated if I ever got a phone call and it was someone I knew, and I didn't know that it was them. So like
Mm,
that mentality of like getting phone calls from random phone numbers was like like annoying. I'm like, who is this? It always put me like answering the phone always put me on like guard up trying to figure out who it is or if it's someone I've talked to before. And so in that response, I always made it this a goal of like, no matter who's calling in, that inbound phone number needs to be saved in some sort of manner, right? And so it created this habit of if I'm talking to someone new for the first time, even if they're a vendor, especially if they're a realtor, and especially if they're an introduction from a friend referral or someone I met networking, I'm always, if they call me and I don't have their information saved, I'm always asking like, okay, can you remind me your full name? How do you spell your last name? Right. And just so I have complete information, what's your email address? And I will add them into my phone basically on that call to make sure that I know when they reach out again in the future. So
it's funny. I used to make fun of my mom, who was a realtor for 30 years, and she had this green 3M spiral notebook with a bunch of stickies hanging off the side, right?
mhm.
And it was always like Bob with the dog, or that kind of stuff. And I'm
Yeah,
like, Mom, and not surprisingly, she was on that treadmill, man, and always willing to be a relo agent and give up, huge percentages to the company that she worked for as a result of it, because she didn't work a formal database. I'm curious, when you think back now, like 10 years plus, since fifth grade, I think you said, how big is that database today, approximately, would you guess?
now it's like 90,000 people.
Holy cow. So when you
Yeah.
think about segmentation of your database, well, first of all, do you segment your database? And if so, how do you do that?
Absolutely, because it's become, I mean, even back then when I got into the business, I think I would, if you scroll down to the bottom of your phone on your contacts, you can see exactly how many contacts you had. And that was a question that we had when we were interviewing agents for our team was how many contacts are saved in your phone? How big is your network? And I think in the beginning, it was when I started getting into the business, it was somewhere around like 2,000 people. And obviously, it's expanded over time. And we've expanded our database because we track realtors' contact information and vendors' contact information. So it's more that 90,000 is more than just customers and sphere of influence. But all of those people can become, you know, someone who we can transact with in the future. And so it just comes down to segmentation. It comes down to really identifying and categorizing the people properly. So if it's sphere of influence related and it's friends, family, and people I've met or people I've met networking, I usually rank them usually by like how good the relationship is. Is this like an A, B, C, or D type person?
Hmm.
And the A's are typically like they are my cheerleaders. They're the ones who I interact with the most. We have a genuine, authentic relationship. We hang out the most frequently, usually, or we talk the most. Or even if we don't, it's someone where when we see each other again, it's like we saw each other yesterday, even if it's been 3 months. But those are the advocates, right, for me and my life and what I do. And so that's typically where a lot of my referrals and reviews and recommendations come from is the people on that A list. And that's just out of the 90,000 contacts, that A list is only 150 people, right?
Okay.
So, and for some people, your A list may be 20, right? If you're newer in the business or you don't have a team, and then it's everyone else is just ranked down. And so it's all about trying to organize them based off of the type of the relationship that we have. How can I help them grow with whatever they're doing in their life? And how can we mutually benefit each other? And sometimes, things happen and people fall off the A list, and the people on the B list you become closer friends with or you have better interactions with, and they move themselves up. And I really kind of focus on my sphere of influence marketing campaign to be tiered in that manner so that I'm touching the A's and I'm interacting with the A's more frequently than the B's, the C's, and the D's. And that's how I kind of prioritize the group as a whole.
Okay. It's interesting you say that. A lot of people, when they use A, B, C's, they're talking about time to transact, right? Hot lead versus going to be 12 months to 18 months, so on and so forth. But you're really gauging it based off, is this person likely to use me? Is this person likely to recommend me? Do I need to have been a past client to get onto your A list?
Nope. Some of
Okay.
my closest friends are on the A list, right? And that's just because they're advocates. I know that if someone asks them, if they come across someone who's talking about real estate or thinking about buying or selling, I have faith that they're going to introduce me and drop my information or share my contact information. So that's why they're on the A list. So
Okay. And
and and so the transaction process of like people who are in the pipeline to actually purchase or sell is a totally different pipeline for me. So if someone in those categories raises their hand or we have a conversation and they're going to start the transaction process, that's when I put them in a different pipeline.
okay. I want to ask you about that in a little bit, but sticking with the A, B, C, D, I'm putting you on the spot here, so rough numbers are just fine. So about 150 in the A category. What about the B, C's, and D's?
About 300 in the B's. I think there's another 400 in the C's, and the D's is kind of like everyone else.
Okay. And what's the biggest difference between a B and a C? Is it
Um,
just feel?
so I look at it like the B's are people who I think will be valuable relationships that I'm working to become A's,
Ah, okay.
and then the C's are important people that I know I need to keep tabs on, and then the D's are like everyone else that we do general marketing to.
Okay. That gives me a great sense of things. So you talked about the outreach to A's being different from everybody else. Could you give me a sense, like if I were an A in your database, how often in a year's time would I expect to hear from you? What are those going to be? Are those going to be in-person pop bys, telephone calls, quarterly notes, cards, anniversaries, all that kind of stuff?
So so the standard is um monthly touch points, monthly phone calls, monthly check-ins. And then I track them a little bit differently on Facebook and social media. So
Hmm.
I'll have those people in a specific friend list on Facebook so that I can track their life and ensure that I'm doing touch points for more memorable experiences like when their birthday is, when their kid's birthday is, when their spouse's birthday is, right? And kind of be pragmatic about those interactions that are important to their life and be reaching out about those instances so that I'm not ever saying thinking about buying or selling a house this month. No, it's always like, hey, I saw, uh or isn't your wife's birthday this upcoming week? Are you guys doing anything special? Right? Or I saw on Instagram that your puppy passed away. I'm so sorry, and send them a gift. Or, you know, something related to that. It's a much stronger relationship. So it's more so there's a lot of interactions that I don't necessarily track with them on social media, but I do track that I have at least like a phone call with them, once a month in our database.
Okay. And, and do you have, like, when you think about your touch systems, is there a base layer that, like a monthly newsletter or something that everybody gets?
Yep.
So what does that look like?
So we actually do a couple different email newsletters. So and it kind of depends on that segmentation. And the clearer your segmentation, the more creative you can get with it. So we started doing local events emails. So this would be emails with upcoming events for this weekend based off of city to leads who have registered in those specific cities through our either through our website and platform or based off of what their address is. So
Okay.
that would be one touch point for some of the like across the board is like if you live in Baldwin Park, hey, here are the upcoming events in Baldwin Park, or if you expressed interest in Baldwin Park, just kind of like, and that kind of hits our community local advocate, our local community advocate spot that we want to hit. So,
And
uh,
these are not necessarily events you're putting on. These are just community events in the area. It's interesting.
mhm.
So there's and I had it in when I lived in Houston. There was Old Town Springs. Here, where I live in Austin, I'm close to another place not too far from me that has. At one time, I was joking with a friend. I said, "It seems like they have 200 festivals every year." And I went and looked, and actually, it's 400 and something festivals every year in this town that's just down the road from us, right? And is it that kind of a thing that you're putting out for the communities?
It is, but sometimes it's even like it's local news and local events. So like this
Mm.
new restaurant opened up in because Central Florida is has a lot of different suburbs and a lot of different micro cities in it. So we can pull news from different cities. Like this new place opened up in Winter Garden. Have you seen the new Top Golf that just launched in Lake Mary? You know, here's the hours for it. You know, obviously it's Fourth of July time frame now. So we always send out here are the best places to watch the fireworks for Fourth of July, right? And with those event details. So it's just compiling and kind of like providing the information for them so that they don't have to go search for it. And that's kind of what we want to provide in our weekly and monthly emails to them.
Okay. And are you for those Bs, and maybe even for Cs, aside from the newsletter, is there something else that they're getting in some sort of automated fashion?
So if for anyone in our database that we have a home evaluation on, or sorry, a property address, we do provide a home evaluation for like through Fellow. So they have a portal where they can always check that and spy on their neighbors. Um, but otherwise, it would be, I think the biggest thing is, like you said, even though we advertise community events, there are events that I invite people to that I don't plan. And I think a lot of agents may overlook that. So, for instance, there's a annual art immersive experience that's in downtown Orlando that happens once a year called Immerse, and it's just this free outdoor event where you can go see all these different entertainment and symphony and acts and art installations. And so for that event, I just invite all my aides, and I'm like, I'm going to this. This is a very cool event. I would love for you to come and join me. And there'll be a group of us, and we'll grab a drink at a bar, you know, outside the event, and then we'll go to the event. And I think that makes it a lot easier than having to actually put on your own start to finish event when you can
Yeah.
actually tie the local community culture that you're interested in to and provide that experience or new experience to your sphere of influence.
That's smart. You talked about fellow, and this kind of bleeds into the thing you said earlier about when people raise their hand. And I know fellow has sort of predictive analytics on the backside where you can see who's opened what in terms of the monthly home valuation. What are the other things that you look for? I'm certain with the A's, you're in such great contact with them. There's probably conversation points that come up, but are there other behavioral changes or indicators that make you think, okay, I got to really double down on this person?
You know, the big four, right? I think it's death, divorce, pregnancies, and marriage,
Graduation.
graduations. Yeah. So and that's why I think it's easier when it's on social media because of those people are celebrating those kinds of things. Even your B's and C's that you might not be in constant communication with, right? Those are times to reach out and have a genuine conversation with them rather than just have a Facebook, you know, like or a Facebook message, right? So sending a text to someone when they post something like that is much better, well received, and keeps you top of mind longer than you know if you can't do a phone call, then just doing something on the social media platform.
Yeah, I shared this before, but we've been doing all this research for the lead generation series the EXP University has been building. And we interviewed a bunch of social media agents, Facebook agents, Insta agents, but to a T, what they all shared in their own fashion of saying it was that Instagram, social media platforms, Facebook, whatever your flavor is, it is part of their database. It's just an extension of it. And just like with a fellow, where you would look to see the indicators of activity that are precursors to purchase or sale, just like that, that shows up on those platforms as well if you're paying attention to it. So I'm glad that you said that. When you do see that sort of thing, what's that outreach sound like? Somebody's graduated, or maybe they post about newly single or whatever the case might be. What's your outreach like?
Well, if they're newly single, now it's easy. It's always like, should I say congratulations or I'm sorry? And then they usually pick one, and then I know how it all ended. So, but it's always focusing on that personal event or experience that they had first, whether it's congratulations or my condolences. But like, getting to hear about that experience and celebrating that, right?
Okay.
Before ever saying, "Hey, I saw you lost your mom on Facebook. How are you taking care of her real estate house that you're gonna have to now inherit?" Like, I never say anything like that. That'd be don't do that. Um,
Please.
but it's more so just like staying top of mind. I do find 100% that uh, with sphere of influence, you will get referrals more frequently with in person than any other route.
Okay. Tell me more what you mean by that.
So I'll go to an event, a party, or whatever, and I'll meet up with some friends, and there will always be someone who is like, I've been meaning to reach out to you.
Hmm.
My brother, cousin, coworker, us, right? We're starting to thinking about moving this summer. And that happens so much more frequently in person than through social media, text, or phone calls.
Yeah, very much so. Just out of sight, out of mind, so to speak. Um,
Yep.
when you talked earlier about having a different demarcation system for people who express some sort of interest, what is that, and then what happens when you go, oh, okay, they're about to buy or they're about to sell? What how do you expedite your communication process?
Move them into our deal pipeline.
Okay. And so literally in your FUB, you've got a different campaign, and
Mhm.
what does that campaign consist of? Am I going to get like triple touches each day from you, email, phone, text, or do you take a different approach?
So the good part is, like, if someone in my sphere of influence has said, we're thinking about doing, you know, we're thinking about transacting sometime in the next 12 months, right? So I'll add them to my deal pipeline, where I'm making sure I'm following up with them on a more regular basis. But typically, at the same time that they're making this announcement to me, is at the same time that I'm going to start kind of pre-qualifying them and
Mm.
getting more information, like, what's making you think about this change, right? Why are you waiting until the end of the year? Well, what's your motivation or driver that's going to be affecting this? And then I try to set the appointment if it's close enough, right? If they are thinking about until the end of the year, I'm like, fantastic. Why don't we get together for wine at your house in about 2 weeks, and we can talk about the details? So it's a lot less kind of like chasing when your sphere of influence raises your hand than an internet lead that, clicks subscribe or I'm interested or fills out a registration form. And it's a lot more authentic relationship, because I'll literally go take a bottle of wine to their house, and we'll sit down and talk about them potentially selling their house in the next 12 months. And we'll also talk about everything else that's going on in their life. Right. And that basically, it just cements the friendship for the transaction process. So then there's no one else that they will consider.
Okay. You mentioned earlier about gift giving. I think you mentioned somebody's dog dying, send them a gift. Is that a big part of your touch system with especially your A's?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so
And
the go ahead.
I'm just going to ask you more details, and I think I
Yeah.
cut you
So
off.
so my handwriting sucks, so I use a system for that. But I we send cards and gift cards for birthdays, anniversaries if we have that information, and then a couple different gift websites where we can send a gift to them if there's like a life change event, a wedding, or uh, passing of a puppy or anything like that. So
Is it like sugarwish.com or things of that nature?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't really have one that I love. I've heard of Sugar Wish. I've used Gift Goose a few times. Um, I've used quite a few different ones. So I think if you have, I think there's one that's built into one CRM somewhere, but we use AM cards for the cards. And the cards you can also put a gift, they'll put a gift card in it. So that part's nice.
That's
So if
cool.
it's, a birthday, it's always like, here, have, dinner out on me, or here's a gift card for um, us to grab drinks the next time we're together, or for y'all to go celebrate, that kind of thing.
I'm betting that there's probably cheapskates listening to you talk right now. There's at least one thinking, man, how much is this guy spending on these folks, and what's the ROI? How do you look at that kind of thought process?
I mean, my closing percentage rate on sphere of influence deals is so much higher than online leads because the relationship's already established. So, and if it's an introduction and they're introducing me to their family member, friend, or coworker, usually the easiest deals to work because they're not gonna someone who you like to do business with and you had a great transaction with, who actually kind of becomes your friend at the end of it. They're not gonna typically refer someone bad that they don't like to you because they don't want to put their name out there, and they're not going to introduce me, right, unless they like me. So it almost makes it like a whole easy second new relationship because I know I'm not getting to deal with someone crazy. There was one time when one person was like, "My friend is crazy. I'm telling you this up front. Do you want the referral?" And I
At
did
least they
take
are
it.
honest. Yeah.
I did take that referral, and now I understand exactly why he said she was crazy. But but more, otherwise it's great introductions. So,
Yeah.
and especially if you are able to niche your business into a specific category, then you can dive deeper and grow faster in that category. So, for instance, think like if your husband's a lawyer and you can start selling homes to other lawyers or attorneys, then they refer to other attorneys. Or more specifically for myself, I work with a lot of people in the medical field. And so I'm working with a lot of ER physicians and other physicians. And the great thing about them is they're usually more than qualified to buy whatever they want, but they also have like medical healthcare professionals have a really close network because they all have been through a crap ton to get to where they are. And so they trust each other when they make referrals and introductions. And they typically don't want to deal with a lot of the real estate stuff. So they're usually easier to work with.
Yeah. I've always said cool people know cool people. And that's the great thing about referral business is that if you can get the right crowd, if you can get your tribe, man, they know other people that aren't yet in your tribe that should be. And so I like that very much. You talked about the referrals. And I'm curious, how often and when do you ask for those referrals?
Usually I'll do a like simple reminder in person um, after someone says thank you.
And what does
So,
that sound like?
so if we're in the middle of a transaction,
Mhm.
um, and we just negotiated the inspection, either repairs or a credit for my buyer, my buyer says thank you, then I'll be like, "You're absolutely welcome. By the way, if you know anyone else who's like looking to transact in the next 30 days, please, keep my name in mind." And so that will happen like at least once in every transaction. right? At one point in the transaction, there's that opportunity before you even get to closing. Even when I'm showing houses, I'll do the same thing. And usually it's at like the end of the day, we've seen, 4 or 5 houses, and it's the last house, and they've decided to make a decision to write an offer, right? And so we'll have that conversation, and then I'll ask at the same time. And the one thing to remember is like for most people, buying a home or selling a home is the largest financial transaction that they'll do in their lifetime, or at least in the next 5 years. So they are typically talking to everyone about it.
Yeah.
And so because they're talking about to everyone in their life and their family and their workplace about this, big financial thing that they're about to do or they're in the middle of, um, they typically will hear that someone else is experiencing it as well or is thinking about it, right? Or it will share their experience. And so I've gotten a lot of introductions that way, specifically when people are in the middle of a transaction, just by asking.
Yeah. You said something that's nuanced that a lot of people might just sleep on. But what I've found is, especially from hardcore referral agents, people who get a lot of business from it, if you wait till the end of the transaction to ask for a referral, or later on after the transaction, you might get it if you ask the right way and you've done your job. But there's also a lot of things that happens during that contract to close phase of the transaction that can make them doubt, can make them
Mhm.
wonder, right? They're never going to be as giddy with you as when they go to write that offer. They're never. And that's where I find that separates the wheat from the chaff in terms of really good referral agents is they're asking at multiple points, but they are sure asking at that point where they know that that client is going to be most happiest with them. And I think that's a very good thing for you to mention. You talked about earlier the community events that you do. Would
Mhm.
you share a few examples of the things that you've done that are successful, not only in terms of building relationships and rapport with your database, but also in terms of generating business?
So a lot of my personal referral or my personal sphere is my age and their other young professionals. So I typically like to bring them together and basically like host my own mastermind networking event, happy hour with that group of people. And that's usually where that's. I mean, we've done client appreciation events in the past for our team and for our team of our agents. But for me personally, that's kind of where I think majority of my business is because I'm a connector and I can bring people together and say, hey, you're in roofing. You should really meet this guy in insurance. I think you guys might be a great connection and do that on a business level. It also helps strengthen like those personal relationships.
It's kind of like the Bin Lobby BNI type of group is what it kind of sounds like. And
I was in BNI when I first got started. So yeah.
okay, well, there you go. It makes all the sense in the world. And how frequently are you bringing that group together?
So for some of them, it'll be monthly, and then for some of it's quarterly. So it kind of depends on where they fall on the list.
Whether or not you like them. Got it. Uh, so you do that. Are you doing other community client events as well?
Um, Not for the sphere of influence. We've done sponsorships of other events. We are active in the LGBT community, so we've had a booth set up at Pride, Orlando Pride, multiple years, and we'll just usually our team members will sponsor certain school events, and so I think it really just like it's all about being top of mind and being active in your community and getting your name and face in front of the people that you want to serve. It's that simple.
Yeah, just that simple. But I mean, it is. It's not difficult. It's just the work and being consistent with it.
Mhm.
Um, I wanted to ask you, and I want to respect your time. I know we're near the end here, but I'm curious because you are a team leader and you mentioned getting your team to work their sphere. And I'm not going to pretend that, you have it all figured out. I'm sure as a team leader, you have your own challenges in coaching your team. but so many team leaders struggle with getting their team members to work their sphere. Was that your experience, and how did you overcome that?
I think I think it really depends on someone's personality type.
Mm,
So I think the real question to also ask is if they're not able to work their sphere, or if they don't feel like they have a large sphere, are they working the team generated leads? That'd be the first question I would look into.
yeah.
Because some agents do lean one way over the other, right? They would rather uh, talk to 100 strangers on the phone, or door knock 100 homes before saying anything related to asking for a friend for their to buy a house with them or for their business. So there's definitely, I think, uh, personality difference between the two. Um, I can do cold calling. I don't like it. So I stick with my strength, which is networking, friends, and family. And so I think you just have to lean into what is easiest for you, because that's what's going to drive you to actually do it.
Okay. Can I ask you about AI before we go?
Of course.
So you and I were chatting about this, and I know from our mutual friend Renee Funk that you're I don't know if big AI agent is the right way to say it, but that's how she said it to me. How are
Okay.
you using? Okay, good. So how are you using AI on your team?
On the team, so we are doing it a couple different ways. So we are working on obviously AI texting. So for lead qualification purposes, there's
Mm,
a few systems that we're using for qualifying those online team generated leads through texting and AI voice. And then we're using it a lot also internally behind the scenes for operations standpoint. So we're heavily active with EXP Revenos. So we do a
mm,
lot of BPOs, broker priced opinions, and we're doing using AI constantly for researching the property, the community, and getting the background information or collecting the data in a faster manner so that we can complete those in a faster manner. So those would
okay.
be like the two biggest ones.
I'm curious. You talk about the lead qualifying of online leads. What's that process look like?
So it's the when the basically the AI texting agent will reach out to the lead the moment that they register on the website, or that they do some specific hand raise and start the conversation, and attempt to gather information from that contact over a series of text messages, which are more than just like templated text messages. It's typically once the lead responds. I mean, it'll be like different text messages to get the lead to respond, and then once the lead responds, the conversation will adapt and the questions will change based off of what the information that the lead is providing. So it'll be able to basically gather and qualify the lead to determine if they are thinking about buying, thinking about selling, what their budget is, if they're selling, what property it is, what their motivation is, and kind of like those initial data points to then at the end book a call or ask when a good time is to schedule a call or appointment. And that would be with myself or one of the agents.
Okay. My team has been exploring using Zapier and Innate In along with chat and other tools to create those automations. Did you do this yourself, or is this a service that you're using?
So there's two platforms. Some of this is built into Wailopo as a service.
Okay.
So they have the AI calling and AI texting built in. And then we've looked at different platforms to make something a little bit more customized to our area. Um, just because when you typically buy these things as a service, they don't have all the entire context, right, of how we run our business, where we serve, what neighborhoods we cover, what other things we do outside of just transactions, and that kind of thing. So another platform we've looked into is Go High Level, and a few
Yeah.
others besides just building something super custom with like an 8-in, but that is possible.
Honestly, I'm very surprised at how readily accessible those tools are. Now, you are going to sit there and scream at the computer a couple of times over the course of a few hours, but it is a few hours that you're going to spend building this, and man, it can save you so much time on the backside of things.
Mhm.
So by the way, if you're not familiar, N8N, just like it sounds, N8N, or Zapier is comparable, but I think N8N has better functionality in my experience, anyways. So easy tools. All right, Ben. Final thoughts for folks who are looking to build their business and work their sphere more and get referrals from it. Any last parting thoughts that you'd have for them?
The most underused tool that I've seen agents like yeah, not use is their CRM. So
Yeah,
just invest time. Sometimes it's painful if it's, if it's not your thing, but invest time in making your CRM organized and segmenting your database. And you will find opportunities that you have totally overlooked or missed or forgot to respond to.
yeah, that's so true. It was funny about that is when we piloted FastCap last summer, we invited mentors into the program because we just wanted them to audit it. We wanted them to give us their uncensored feedback. And what was interesting is my team started getting all these love notes from the mentors because they were in the program and they started doing the program. And all of a sudden they started getting results. Sometimes we just get so busy, chasing after today's business that we forget to work for tomorrow's. And it's so funny what happens when you knock the dust off of that database and get down to it.
Mhm.
It's great advice. Ben, thanks for doing this with us. We really appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.